been saying since I found out today, Jerry, other than my father, was the most impactful man in my life. I mean, he changed the whole trajectory of my life. I mean, my career. I met my wife on his show. I think, everything I had, my kids, everything was because of my meeting of Jerry Springer and working for the man for so many years. And uh, I loved him. That's why, I mean, I loved him as any good friend I've ever had in my life. The guy was always tremendous to me. I know my wife is devastated. I'm devastated because I honestly thought Jerry was the kind of guy that probably would outlive me. And I'm 20 years younger than him. The guy didn't smoke, didn't drink, wasn't overweight. I mean, had a lot of energy for an older guy, always on the go. I mean, honestly, to me, 79 is old, but to me, it's kind of a shock because I certainly thought he'd be here for a lot longer.
Well, I know the news just came out this morning and you found out this morning, but have you gotten a chance to speak to his family at all to, find out how they're holding up?
I left a message with his wife, and obviously, I'm sure they need their time, but I'm sure at some point I'll be talking to his wife. I know the whole Springer family, and I can't imagine what they're going through right now.
Well, obviously you guys were close. When was the last time you saw Jerry? Are you able to share with us the last conversation you guys had?
Yeah, I saw Jerry a little over a month ago. It was a Wednesday. I got done taping, and he sent me a text. He goes, "Hey, I was in New York. I'm coming up. I'd love to see you." And he was going to have dinner with some other guys that worked on his show. And I said, "I can't make dinner." I go, "Let me know if you're going to go for a cigar, and I'll meet you for a cigar." And I was tired, and I really, once I got home, I just wanted to stay home. But I'm like, I don't get to see Jerry. I love the guy. I'm going to go see him. And I met him for a cigar in Stanford, and we sat there. And looking back, I didn't think anything really unusual was happening. But whenever I would see Jerry, we would talk and catch up on things. We weren't two guys that sit around and talk about the glory days and rehashing old times and all that once in a while. But for the most part, he would tell me about his grandson and what was going on in his life. And I would be catching him up on my kids, and we'd be talking baseball. We weren't two guys that just sat and looked in the past a lot. But that night we reflected a lot, and we shared a lot of old stories, and he embraced me in a way that he never really embraced me. He gave me a hug, and he was telling me he loved me. And I think he knew he was sick. I didn't even know he was sick until this morning, because he looked the same to me. I knew there was something off, but I certainly didn't know he had terminal illness or whatever he had. And I think it was his way of saying goodbye to me.
Well, you talked about how you were reminiscing when y'all met that day. What's one of your favorite memories that you have, or favorite stories that you have with Jerry? I'm sure there's a ton of them, but is there anyone that stands out in particular?
Oh my God, it's just such a million great memories. You know, I remember, we do my show completely different than his. Like when I hit the stage, I tape all the way through. But Jerry, we would do segments, and then we would break down, and we'd go backstage, and it was just a little area that my wife, who was his executive producer, and me and Jerry, and we would sit back there, and I just remember laughing all the time. And the show was so crazy, and even we laugh. Oh, we're all going to hell someday, and because the absurdity of the show, and that's when when you look back, the relationship I had with him was one that there was no bad times. And when I say that to you, I'm telling you, in 30 years I knew the man, it wasn't one bad time. It was laughter. It was just just enjoying the moment. And that's, I say, when I was on the Springer Show, those years back in Chicago, those were the best years of my life, and I owe it to him.
Well, one of the things I saw trending, especially on social media today, is he defined a generation. He's a legend in the TV landscape, and a lot of people like from my age and older, that was one of the things. If we were out home from sick from school, we were watching Jerry Springer. I mean, talk about the impact Jerry had and the legacy that that he left behind.
Well, I I equate being around Jerry when the show exploded, we were beating Oprah, to what it must have been around to be around somebody like Elvis Presley or the Beatles. Because first of all, we were traveling the world, going everywhere. We were going, he was, back then he was doing Leno and Letterman, and we were just, we're in Austin Powers too, and just doing all these great, cool stuff. And, we'd eat in restaurants, and they had to shut the restaurant down, and people banging on the windows. And we'd get in limos, and people would like rush the limo and rock the limo. And, that stuff doesn't happen nowadays. And this is back when, before really cable and, the internet, especially internet, social media, and cell phones. And, to have, nobody's ever going to have that bright Nova shining moment of popularity, of being talked about every day, water cooler, because entertainment is so splintered now. And you might be hot for 5 minutes and then something else comes along. People's attention spans are very short now. But when Jerry was number one in the world, everybody would talk about it every day. And he was the biggest star in the world. And it was just so cool to experience that, being around him.
Did you, I mean, because you were famous for being on the show, for being the guy who was the first one up on stage to break up the fights. Did you ever, just after some of those shows, be like, damn, Jerry, your guest got me on that one? You ever give him a
Oh,
hard time about that?
well, why I've been telling the story today of, he was getting ready to do his movie, Ringmaster. And in the beginning of the movie, he has a scene with his movie wife, and he had to take his shirt off. And he said, "Hey man, I really got to lift some weights, get in a little better shape for this movie. Will you work out with me?" And I said, "Yeah." So, we'll start working out tomorrow. And then we went in to do the show, and there's two girls fighting, and I went down to break them up. And, in Chicago, we had these great, big, powerful audiences, and it would be really loud in the studio when a fight would start. And I bent down, and my groin snapped in half, like just tore. And I thought somebody shot me from the audience. That's how bad it felt. And I remember I crawled off backstage, and I got backstage, and I was in so much pain, I started throwing up. And Jerry come walking around the corner, and he looks at me and he goes, "We still working out tomorrow?" It's like, are you kidding me? Like, I feel like I just died, and he's like laughing at me. And I was looking up at him like, "You son of a bitch." And so, but that was a moment that I'll never forget.
Well, you started off on his show and then became successful with your own show, the Steve Wilkos Show. When that show came about, what words of advice did Jerry give you?
Well, Jerry was incredibly supportive, but like, the best advice, and it's very simple advice. He said, "Hey man, just be yourself. Don't be me. Don't try to, don't do your own thing, right? Like, don't do, like, because people, I think, were thinking, oh, I was going to do another version of Jerry Springer Show, and we went completely another way." And it was nice to him to say, "Hey man, you're good. People are going to watch you. Just be yourself." And that's what I did. And and it was great advice. And like I said, it was always encouraging, always very supportive. Anything that I ever need or would want or ask, Jerry was there.
But I want to leave you with this because, Jerry was famous for his final thoughts at the end of every show. What would be your final thoughts when it comes to the legend that is Jerry Springer?
my final thought would be, I would want every man to be a little bit like Jerry. If you're a younger person, um, to be like Jerry, and I say that because I see how everything's so divisive today, and people shout each other down. They don't listen to other people's opinion. And Jerry was he was the best at that. Even if he had a very opposing thought or his view, he would listen to people, and he might not agree with you, but he would respect your opinion. He would listen, and he wasn't going to bludgeon you over the head to make you think his way. Me and Jerry thought different ways on a lot of things, but we were such good friends, and we would talk and listen to each other. And, so that was a big thing about Jerry. Great listener, a very kind man who thought about other people. Really didn't think about himself a lot. He really put other people first. And if you talk to anybody that was in Jerry's life, I guarantee you, every one of them would say that. And I would think that's his legacy. When he says, take care of yourself and each other, really do that. He's gone now. Live up to those words. Take care of yourself, but take care of each other. And, those words, I heard them a million times, and sometimes maybe they lose their meaning. But today, it really means a lot.